Thanks for staying with us on The Real Story. Our second guest this morning is State Representative Themis Klarides, House Minority Leader. Thanks for being here today.
Always happy to be here.
All right, so let's get right to it. We have this Connecticut Reopen Advisory Board that the governor had put together this past week, and we did learn at the end of this past week that they talked with legislative leaders. That includes you. So what was your impression and what did they talk about?
Well, this was the first kind of meet and greet, let's call it, conversation we had with Dr. Coe and Indra Nui, who are the chair people of this new group that was set up a few days ago. And they said they wanted to have our input as leaders. And we just had a lot of conversations about what we think might be suggestions, where they think they're going, what timeframes might be, that kind of thing. There were obviously no decisions made yet because this was an initial conversation.
Now, I know recently State Senator Len Fasano had felt like the governor was, with some of his recent orders, overstepping his authority and also wasn't being as collaborative with leaders as he said he would have been in the first place. Then we listened to a press conference this past Thursday where the governor said that he was praising Senator Fasano for the work he was doing and had a phone conversation with him and talked. Do you know right now if it feels like he's collaborating more? Do you feel like he's come back to that?
Well, you know, we've had direct contact with the governor's office from the beginning, and a lot of the executive orders showed a lot of the interests that the leaders had. And that's a good thing. The problem is in the past few weeks in regards to the statewide bridge loan program that the state put forward, we had a conversation with them about that, and we were very clear that we didn't think $20 or $25 million was anywhere near enough to fund the needs of the people of the state of Connecticut, and that seemed to be a done deal before we even spoke with them. And we saw the results of that. They put $25 million in, and then that went in seconds, basically. And then another $25 million in, and that's also gone. So, you know, we were suggesting in the, $100 million, $150 million range as far as that was concerned. Then all of a sudden, we've been talking excessively about the fact that we need to have a plan of reentry, of how the state of Connecticut is going to move forward. We understand that health and safety is the first and foremost and should always be in regards to any of these decisions. But there also needs to be a plan on how we're going to integrate people back into their jobs and their lives and put people back into the public when the time is right. And so when all of a sudden all these decisions were made and there was no input from the legislative leaders, and remember, there's 187 of us in the House and the Senate, and we represent the entire state of Connecticut, millions of people, and we have input from those people every day, their experiences, their business experiences, their family experiences, their health experiences. And it's not about, you didn't do what we wanted. It's about you should have input from everybody who's affected, and we are the people on the ground in regards to who is being affected and how they're being affected.
You're referring, I would assume, to when he announced the compact with the Northeast governors? Because I know that Senator Fasano as well, and you had posted on social media about this, there was concern that, New York City's needs might not be the same as Eastern Connecticut's needs. Their timeline is different on when COVID-19 was hitting them, when the peak was, and how that recovery might happen.
Well, being from Southern Connecticut, I certainly understand the connection we have with New York City, but we also have to, and New York State, but we also have to understand that you go up along the border towards Danbury, they're very connected with New York State. You go along the northern border, they're very connected with Massachusetts, and the eastern border with Rhode Island. So I think it's reasonable to have Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York involved in those conversations because being the third smallest state in the country, our economies, socially, psychologically, we're very integrated with those three states. But then you add Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Delaware, of all states, into that regional conversation. We don't have any problems with these conversations, but what we need to know is what's best for Connecticut, not what's best for Delaware, and that was our concern.
Is there something that the state should be doing right now that we aren't doing? I know you had mentioned the bridge program, how that hasn't been replenished, and it was only $50 million. I would assume that's one of them for you. Is there anything else?
Well, remember, the bridge loan program began as $25 million. And when we had conversations with DECD and the governor's office 2 days before, we were very clear that that was almost an embarrassment in regards to that amount of money. And within days, they decided to add another $25 million to that. And although we were thankful for that, we were suggesting $120, $130, $150 million just to start. And if you want to help the people of the state of Connecticut, you have to make sure you do it in a real way. And that left people with the feeling that you were just kind of throwing them a bone and saying, sorry, we don't have any money left. I mean, you look back to the other programs that the state has put forth, the unemployment program. Now, the state of Connecticut has their own money that they are giving people for unemployment. And then, as you know, the federal government has added on top of that a $600 to that every time you get an unemployment check. And while that's wonderful, the state's system was unable to handle that, which means almost nobody has gotten unemployment checks thus far. We were very happy to hear the Department of Labor announced yesterday they are starting to fix the problems with that system, and those unemployment claims will start being processed on April 24th, and the payment should be in your check the week after. We've also added into those unemployment checks and those unemployment eligibility people who own their own businesses and independent contractors. And that was also stuck in these glitches. And I understand you can't foresee anything like this happening. None of us have ever experienced it. And we're all new to it. So certainly we're going to learn from our mistakes. But if you're going to put money in as a state, you better put substantial money so people know you mean it. And I don't think $25 million to start and then another $25 million showed that we meant it.
Yeah, have those conversations stopped about the bridge loan? Does it seem like a hard and fast that they're not going to put any more in?
Well, there's been so many other things like the unemployment, the real problem with unemployment, that I just talked about, the PPP, the payroll protection plan situation, that became an issue. Then we were talking about this reentry issue, and then when the governor announced last week that he's extending all closings until May 20th. Now, let me say this. May 20th may be the right date. It may be further than that. We don't know. We have to rely on the health experts to tell us that. Here's the problem. We already had an existing executive order for April 30th, that everything was staying closed till April 30th. As of last week, that was 3 weeks away. So you added another 3 weeks to that. Part of a legal job in a situation like this is that, and I can't say this enough, first and foremost, the health of people is what we have to be cautious with, and that should be our number one concern and number one priority. However, you also have to give people some hope. You have to just tell them, okay, we're working on this, and maybe we'll extend it a couple weeks, or maybe we'll extend it a week. But to say, okay, 6 weeks from now, you're not going to open for at least 6 weeks, that's a long time. That should have been done in an incremental way. In addition to that, we want to see what the metrics are. When you say health and safety, what does that mean? Does that mean a week of declining numbers? Does that mean 2 weeks of declining numbers? If that means declining numbers, is that just hospitalizations? Is that deaths? Is that positive testing? Like, what are we looking at? So at least people know what to be prepared for.
Yeah, I know the president came out last week and said that they were going to look at it from a scale of 14 days of less hospitalizations. So it'll be interesting to see if the state kind of picks that up, and then there's so many other metrics, as you say. House Minority Leader Themis Klarides, we really appreciate your time this morning and coming on and speaking with us.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of The Real Story. We'll be here for you again next week. You all be well and healthy. And remember, if you want to watch one of the segments we just did today, go to fox61.com.